Antonio sweaty in a tank top. That's
Yeah.
great.
This is pretty much my daily outfit.
Oh yeah, tank top everywhere you go.
Yeah, it just makes my life easy. I just get the same thing every day.
Nice. Minimalist lifestyle. I like it.
Well, welcome everybody to our YouTube live tonight. We have with us Dom Inglesi. He's a guy on my team. He does dispositions. We just did a pad split talk 2 weeks ago. It was awesome. He's also a private money lender. We have with us our guest, Keith. Welcome, Keith, from Canada.
Hey guys, how's everyone doing?
We're good, man.
Good.
Dude.
Good to be here, man. I'm really happy that we're even doing this. I tried to get you on. I remember earlier, and then we had some scheduling issues, and now we're finally making it happen. So that's great.
You're in Toronto, right? You said?
Yeah, Toronto, man. I live in the Distillery District area in downtown. I don't know if you know Toronto, but yeah, I live here.
I've been to Toronto one time. I drove up from Buffalo. I spent the day there in November. And
did you like it?
Yeah.
What do you mean, man? It's the best city in the world.
It was dirtier. It was dirtier New York City.
Smaller too, right? A lot
smaller, a little dirtier. Great food.
Yeah.
It was negative 10 degrees when I was there, though. So
that's not bad.
Yeah, it was crazy.
That's not that bad. I think the worst I've experienced was negative 35 Celsius degrees. So that's pretty cold.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, we're happy to have you on. We got some interesting stories to get into with you.
Yeah.
But if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about your background, because I know you were investing in Canada. Tell us a little bit about how you got into real estate, and break down what you did before you joined Sub 2 and you started looking into the U.S. markets that you're in now.
Yeah. So I guess I'll take it back. I'm from Toronto. I grew up here my whole life, but I went to university here and everything too. After I graduated university, I didn't really know what to do. I went to law school for a year in England. After about a year, I realized it wasn't for me. I wanted to do something more exciting and different, so I dropped out and I joined the Navy. And then I spent 4 years in the Navy, which was fun. I loved it. Great time. Did 4 years in the Navy, and then my contract came up for expiration in 2019. Then I decided, you know what, I'm ready for something different. That chapter of my life was over. And as soon as I left the Navy, I came back to Canada. I joined the federal government, and I currently work as a communications advisor. That's what I was working at. So it's similar to public relations, but it's internal marketing. As a team, we work on writing speeches. We work on internal marketing campaigns, and just creating events and supporting ministerial events. It's like when you see turn TV on and you see a politician talking, and then you see a bunch of people in the background. I'm usually one of those guys. But at 2019, I knew I wanted to get into business. That's what I wanted to do. I want to get into business, right? And I have a more logical approach in how I figure out what I want to do. So I took a different approach. I tried to find out what is my network. And what I ended up doing is I just took out my phone, right? And then I read this in a book. I don't remember what book, but I took out my phone. Beside every contact, I wrote down what industry everyone was in. And then I tallied it up, and I found that the two biggest industries that I currently have in my phone contact, just like my friends, my family members, right? Or people I met, maybe acquaintances. It ended up being both real estate and the wedding industry. So I'm like, all right, cool. Those are the two businesses that I'm going to get into. I'm not going to do anything else. So immediately, that's kind of how I figured it out, literally. And in terms of the wedding industry, I called up my buddies, and then I met some hall owners, and then I figured out I wanted to do a 360 photo business, partnered up with someone. And by doing that, in my first year of that business, we booked 30 events, and we spent $0 in marketing. We just through word of mouth, but it wasn't really direct to consumer, I guess. It was more like I would have a conversation, I would network with event planners and DJs, people that I've already known, right? People that were my friends or connected with their friends, and that's how I got the event, just by talking.
Wow.
So, again, right, your network is your network. So I just stuck with that logical approach, right? Instead of trying to go and make new connections and figure out a business. And I had friends who also started a photo booth business and a photo booth business, and they had 1 year, the whole year, and they spent like, I don't know, $2,000 on marketing, right? Versus me, $0. And, I was able to make that. So I'm like, great. And then I also wanted to do real estate. So I'm like, okay, great. So how could I do real estate? So I made a bunch of phone calls. I read a bunch of books too, just like everybody, Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, and a bunch of other ones. There was one by a Canadian author. He called himself Jim from Toronto. And when I read that book, I'm like, wow, I need to invest in states. So then I started doing some research, and I figured for Canadians, one of the easiest ways to invest in America is through something called the cross-border mortgage. So we have the big 6 banks here, and most of them have it. You can use your Canadian credit score, and but you need like a 30% down payment, which sucks. But using your Canadian credit score and your history, cross-border mortgage, and you can buy a vacation property. And now I found out there's companies, the turnkey rental property companies in the States. We don't really have them in Canada. So I was like, I just contacted them and tried to see if I could just buy a turnkey property off the bat. So then I don't have to do anything, at least something is invested. But then I had a lot of issues trying to do that. And I didn't really figure out how to protect myself legally. And at the time, I just didn't know enough lawyers, and I was just Googling everything. So the stuff that I was searching up was all about S corps and just open up an LLC. But then I read something about double taxation, and I was like, wait, what? What am I supposed to do? Right? So after a few hurdles and finding out that it costs 30% to buy like a rental property, I'm like, for me as a Canadian, I'm like, you know what? I might take a different approach. So I started, taking a logical approach again. I'm like, okay, well, if I was to invest in Canada, I can't invest in Toronto, right? Because I don't know if you know, but where I live, like a 2,000 square feet house will cost you like $2 million. And it does not cash flow.
In Canadian dollars or US dollars?
In Canadian dollars.
Yeah. Okay, but so that's what, like 1.5 million US dollars?
Yeah, 1.6 million US dollars. Yeah.
Let's rewind for a second, because you have like a Ryan Pineda like arc to your story. Like because when I listened to like Ryan Pineda, like he was like professional baseball. Then I don't know what happened to him after that. I don't know if he got hurt or whatever happened. But then he started looking for like different business opportunities to get into. And he started flipping couches. I don't know if you heard that story. Like he would buy couches on like I don't know, eBay, and then he would refurbish them and he'd sell them maybe a few $100 to a few $1,000.
Yeah.
And that whole like wedding planner, whatever it was, that whole business venture that you kind of started yourself, it's kind of like a similar trajectory. And eventually, you both ended up in real estate, which is kind of cool. But I don't know. I felt like pointing that out. I thought that was kind of cool. So you tried so many different things. Just to backtrack to what you said in the beginning, you kind of glossed over it, but you went overseas to school to become a lawyer, you said, right?
Yeah. So I finished my undergrad here in Toronto at the University of Toronto, and then I went over to do law school in England because I wanted to leave the country. I wanted to try something different, experience something different. And then I went there, and it just wasn't for me. Didn't like it, so I wanted to do something completely different, something that required more action. The military is very exciting, right? So they also pay you to do, a bunch of cool stuff. So I'm like, all right, cool. Let me try to figure it out. And that's why I kind of joined the Navy. But obviously, like I got in, it was pretty cool. Like I was a naval communicator. So like when I did my undergrad, I double majored in English philosophy. So I took like a communication route, communication marketing, whatever you want to call it, right? And I thought I had to go to law school because that's what a lot of my friends were doing at the time, right? But instead joined the Navy. Naval communication was okay. Like I liked a lot of the jobs that I did, like day-to-day operations, and I got to deploy. We went to a bunch of countries, which was awesome, right? But a lot of the work that we do is very support, and it didn't give me the flexibility that I needed to do side hustles or anything else because I just wasn't home, right? Like I'd be at when I deployed, I was at sea for 6 months, right? And at the time, we didn't have Wi-Fi inside the ship. There's no Wi-Fi, right? We had a silent phone, but I wasn't allowed to use my phone, and I worked in a communications operations room, so you can't even take your cell phone in there. I'm like, right? And the computers that we have, they're really slow. I don't know if you know, or if you have ever tried using the internet, like in the middle of nowhere in the ocean, it's really, really slow, right? So
So Keith, I don't know if you knew this, but I'm actually in the military right now in America.
So I saw your video, like your story on Instagram today. I'm like, oh, yeah. Cool. I wonder what he does. So I thought I was gonna ask you about that. Yeah, what do you do? Yeah, like what trade are you?
So I'm kind of a similar path that you did actually, which is kind of cool. So I was a doctor and I did medical school, and then I did 2 years of residency, and then I dropped out of residency because I hated it.
Wait, what? You took it that far up to residency? Yeah. Man, that's another level. But so what made you, like, what ticked off in your head that you didn't want to do that?
I just, I joined Sub 2, and then there was something that Carolyn Kane kept on saying over and over and over that resonated with me. And she said that you need to reverse engineer your life. And primary care is not super fun. Yeah. And I just looked into the future and was like, do I want to graduate and do this for the next 5 to 10 years? And I was already basically hating it. So I was like, nope, don't want to do this at all.
Yeah.
So
you got to work like 12 hours. I mean, it's for some people, right? It's just not for everyone. Like,
yeah. But I'm going to be on your podcast later. Now's not the time for you to ask me questions.
Yeah, true. I'll save all my questions for later. But yeah, so at that point, I had left, and then I think I was talking about how I started researching where to invest within Canada, and I chose not to invest in Toronto just because it's a tougher market. It's a highly appreciation market. It's a very high appreciation market. So a lot of people here are either you're investing so you can hold and wait for the long term until you can eventually cash flow like 10 years from now, right? But mostly that's not what you're doing. You're trying to gain that appreciation. Why? You have a job that pays a lot of money, or you're putting a large down payment because in 2 or 3 years you're going to build massive amount of equity. It's kind of the same reason why people invest in like New York City, right? You want that appreciation. You don't care about cash flow. Like I haven't met too many people who try to cash flow, from a house in Toronto. Unless you're trying to do student rentals, then you're literally trying to build a room in every corner, every nook and cranny of the house.
Tom knows how to do that.
Yeah. Does Canada have? I doubt it, but does Canada have similar tax codes in regards to real estate?
Different,
like depreciation and different types of things that you can do.
So we don't have a 1031 exchange, right? That doesn't exist for us.
Don't have it, so you have to pay taxes on everything.
Yeah. We don't defer like taxes, and we don't depreciate our assets. We don't do any of that stuff, right? Even the way we're set up right now, if like in the States, if I was to do a 1031 exchange, I still got to pay tax on the Canadian side. So it doesn't affect me at all. Like it doesn't matter to me. So it's not, but
what if you had dual citizenship? You couldn't take advantage of like United States tax codes.
I mean, I don't know about that because I'm not a dual citizen, right? And the way I have it set up is I'm a Canadian resident, and so it's a unique structure. So you know how in the States the LLC is recognized as a flow-through entity, right? So you can put money and pass through, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. So then in Canada, that's not how the CRA, the Canada Revenue Agency, the agency that governs like taxes in Canada, that's not how they see it. So then what I had to do is I had to set up a limited partnership. Because the limited partnership, the way Canada sees it, is a flow-through entity. So then if I have a limited partnership, then I only have to pay one tax. Like let's say my tax bracket here is, 30%, whatever, right? Then I'll pay 21% to the IRS. And then if I pay myself as a dividend by being a shareholder, then the remaining portion of it, like I can pay the CRA, the Canada Revenue Agency. And they will look at the taxes that I pay the IRS and they'll give me credit for it. So you don't have to pay any taxes on that. So I just pay that one flat tax on that, which is great, right? And that's kind of how I pitch it to all my investors as well. It's pretty much my limited partnership that will own all of the LLCs that will own the property. So and then there's also a general partner as well, and that just happens to be a C corp. That's what I use to make all the offers. This way, everyone is like protected in terms of liability. Yeah.
Gotcha.
You can it's a pretty common structure. You can just Google it and read about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, let's not get too much into the weeds, man. Let's get back to you.
Yeah. So what I started doing instead is like I started thinking about where people go to live outside of the GTA, right? And mostly it's for jobs, right? Because I was in the Navy, I saw wherever there was a naval base, there was a lot of people living there. Like I went down to like Mayport, Florida, Jacksonville Beach. There's a lot of people that live there, and the majority of them are all in the Navy. So I'm like, okay, cool. So where in Ontario are there a lot of jobs? So I started looking at the leading producers of like steel, forestry products, renewable energy, and then I came across like Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, which is about 9 hours north of Toronto. There's a Sault Ste. Marie in Michigan as well. It's a border city, right? You can cross over. Then I found like Kirkland Lake, Ontario, and Sudbury. They have like a massive nickel mine there, and that's how those towns and cities were created. They were created because of the resources there, and then they needed jobs, right? So they moved out there a long time ago, and they lived there, and so on. So then I found out that in Sault Ste. Marie you can buy a house for $150,000. I'm like, wow, Canadian dollars, $150,000, and it rents out for $1,600. So I was doing like a bunch of reading and research in 2020, and in 2021 I bought a house in Sault Ste. Marie. I only had to put down 5%, and then basically to get the money, I just used it's called an MBNA credit card here in Canada, and then they had a 0% interest balance transfer. So took out like 10 grand, dropped it on the house, and it only needed minor cosmetic work like paint, right? As soon as I did that, a lot of the houses in the Sault Ste. Marie area, they're appraised higher than what they should be worth, right? Some of them do sell at their actual value, but some of them just end up being listed there for a long time. So I went after a property that was expired like 3 times, and it was listed again for the 4th time. And that's why I was able to buy it for cheaper. So the day after, I went back to the bank and I asked them, hey, is there any equity on this that I can take off? And they said the house was worth $224.
Wow.
Right now. So technically, I got paid 22 grand to buy that house.
Holy
That was an awesome deal, right? And they cash flowed because I actually beat the 1% rule because it rented up for $1,600 a month.
So why was nobody interested in it? You did a BRRRR. You did a cash out refi BRRRR without one R. You don't even need one of the R's. No rehab.
Yeah.
Why was nobody touching this?
A lot of it's far, right? Like some of the booming markets, like if you look at like the history here, like a lot of people were focused on Toronto, and the people who were smart were focused on like the regions that were 2-3 hours away from Toronto. This was like maybe like 10 years ago, or even like 7 years ago, right? They went to Waterloo, Cambridge. They went like to like Kingston, right? And some people went as far as Windsor. And then about 5 years ago, Windsor started booming, and all these cities started booming later and later, right? Because investors started leaving Toronto as Toronto started getting more and more competitive, right? Because a lot of the people that come to Toronto were, they're immigrants, or they have a lot of money, or they're business owners, or they already have houses here and they're giving it to their kids, so they're taking a large equity portion out of their property so the kids can buy. So if you're starting and you don't have that, you don't have parents, if you don't have the bank of mom and dad, what are you gonna do? and you're an entrepreneur, so then you're gonna go out and out and out. So I'm like, okay, I could go to these markets like Windsor, but it is a little bit competitive. I started off by making offers there, and I just kept getting beat every single time because it was booming. Like even today, like in this down market, some houses will get like 12 offers within the first 2 weeks.
Wow.
Right? It's crazy here.
Like so, asking price type of offers?
More asking price and more, right?
Wow.
I know. Remember, like 2 years ago when everyone was over asking, man, it was crazy
right.
here. Like a house in the suburbs will get like 50 offers.
What?
It was insane. Yeah, it was a very normal thing here. Like I started networking with some sub-2 community members, and then that were from Toronto, and we always had the same conversation. We always say, man, it's so crazy how it's different in America, because we have a housing shortage here. We're facing a crisis. It's a real problem, but we're so used to the problem. It's the norm for us, right? Like I had a conversation with someone, like a wholesaler, and I was like, yo, this is a great deal, man. Like take a look at it. Because I was pitching him as a capital partner. Sorry, not a wholesaler. It was a capital partner that I was pitching, but he's from Texas. He said, hey, you know what? Like usually the rental prices, 10% more of that should be the mortgage and the property tax. The day I heard that, in my head, I'm thinking, are you crazy? That's not how it works. Like, because here in Toronto, what I'm used to is, okay, your rent is $3,000, but your mortgage is going to be $8,000. And then you have property tax on top of that and everything on top of that. That's normal, right? And if you go out to the suburbs and you're buying a $1.3 million house, okay, your mortgage is $6,000 a month or $5,000 a month in the current interest rate if you put down 20% or less, unless you put down a large down payment. But the rent for that house is going to be $3,000 a month or $2,400 a month. It's
Why?
supposed to be double or triple. It's not supposed to be, right? Like that's the norm here because
Why?
we like it takes like
Because of the housing shortage.
massive housing shortage. It's very difficult for developers to build here. It takes 6 months to a year sometimes to get your permits approved. Like it's there's a lot of issues. On top of that, they just allowed over 500,000 people into Canada, right? Just in the last year and the year before that as well. And the next year, we're expecting about 1 million people to immigrate to Canada, right? Students as workers, as PRs, people want to be citizens, bunch of reasons, right? And,
I can't name one. No offense.
Yeah. So that because of this, it's just that the current the province of Ontario isn't equipped to handle that kind of a load. So because of that, the property prices are just skyrocketing. That's the simple reason, right? So a lot of Canadians do want to go and invest in the States, but then they're scared. There's a lot of
because there's a lot of government red tape.
Yeah, right. You'd be surprised. There is a Canada U.S. Canada tax treaty. It's just a lot of people, they don't really go googling, hey, what is the Canada U.S. tax treaty? Right? They just say, hey, you have to pay tax if I invest in the U.S. and then immediately you'll see just double taxation. So people avoid it. They instead of talking to a lawyer, they just go googling stuff. That's not really what you want to do.
Yeah, I mean it happens. Like I my girlfriend's family's from Buffalo, and she would her mom used to work with somebody that used to commute from right across the border in Canada to work in New York, like on a day-to-day basis. So it can't be that difficult to figure out how taxation works to the point where, I mean, she's probably not getting double tax. It wouldn't make sense for her to drive across the border every day. She would just get a job in Canada,
Yeah. Working is a little bit different from investing, but So to take it back, I started investing in Sault Ste. Marie. Picked up a property there. Picked up a property in Kirkland Lake, Ontario, and then recently I picked up a property in Sudbury. So it was a triplex. We did a full gut on that. So I went from doing cosmetic to doing a full gut. But what ended up happening is the market went down. I actually lost about $90,000 in that, but it's a burn because the appraisal values dropped a lot, right? Back then it was about 585. That's what I expected, but then interest rates went up 3 times, and our project was delayed a lot. So by the time the appraisal value came in, it came in at 475. But the thing is, with BRRRRs, it doesn't really matter because the truth is, you can just slap on a second mortgage. Why? It's cash flowing. Right? If it's cash flowing, you can slap on a second mortgage. You're going to be fine. I just didn't want to slap on a second mortgage because if I did that, I'm going to break even every month. I'd rather just take the cash flow and wait. Because if you wait 2 years and the rates go down, I can take the money out anyways. So it's a smarter plan. So I just decided to hold off on that. In terms of that, I sold my first house, but I currently, in terms of number of units, it's 5 units in Canada and then 2 in the States. And then, so originally, remember I told you how I wanted to start investing in the U.S., but then I just didn't because of all the complications. And the only avenue I knew was cross-border investing, right? Cross-border mortgages, right through the bank, putting down 30% and buying a vacation property to rent out or Airbnb, or through a turnkey property management company, right? And then I realized, so at the same time, because I was doing business, I was also doing Niagara Falls Airbnb lease arbitrage. So I did one with a buddy of mine. We did that as a business, and then we stopped and we switched it into property management instead. So I still manage a few of my friends' properties in Niagara Falls because it's a very very touristy area. A lot of people go to Niagara Falls to have parties, bachelor parties.
I'm familiar with the area.
Go see the falls, etc. Right?
Wilson Hill.
Yeah. So then I still do that, and then it started bothering me every time I go on to Zillow or Realtor.ca, and I just look across the border right there. A house in Niagara Falls on the Canadian border will cost $600,000, and the same house on the U.S. side will be $50,000, $80,000.
Those houses are dirt cheap.
Wow.
Dirt cheap.
It's dirt cheap. It kept bothering me, and then all of a sudden, I open up my Instagram reel, and I see this guy named Pace Morby, and I see him saying that you can actually buy something sub 2 without going to the bank, and I'm like, what? So I Googled his book, I bought it, Wealth Without Cash. I think that's what it's called. I read the whole thing. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna do this. I just signed up for sub 2 without thinking about it. I realized one of the biggest advantages that Pace Morby has is networking. He built an entire community, And what I was doing at that time was going to a bunch of networking events in Ontario to meet more capital partners and talk to like-minded people. So as soon as I found out, oh, you pretty much build a community of networkers, that's awesome. I want to be a part of that community, right? Because the way I saw it is like, I'm not paying for a course, right? I can Google the stuff. I can talk to a lawyer or a realtor. I can read his book. Like, I'm paying for the networking. I'm paying for the community. I want my foot in the door to that. So I joined, and then as soon as I joined, within the first month, I met Dom, got that deal, and then now I got a second deal.
Let me just commend you for a second, man, because
Yeah.
Wealth Without Cash, Pace Morby's book, came out in like May, right?
Yeah.
You joined. You probably took. Let's say you took a week
July.
or two. Let's say you took a week or two to read that book. Now we're at mid-May.
Oh
right?
no, man! It took like 4 days. Like, it's such a small book. It's so easy to read.
All right, a week. Let's say you took a week. So you bought this book May 1st. You read it. You took, let's say, 4 or 5 days. You immediately joined Sub 2. You took a month to network and learn as much as you can. And then you instantly started to take action right away as soon as you joined the community. That is freaking amazing. So if we want to dive into, how we got connected now, I guess I can kind of start with it. But so essentially, I had a deal that I was assigning. I had it under contract in San Antonio. I had just had a buyer back out after we signed a contract. The previous buyer was a little bit newer. I should have probably done a better job with my processes and my vetting of the buyer and whatnot. And all of a sudden, I'm talking to several buyers about this deal, and I've got this pesky guy in the corner keep DMing me. His name is Keith, and I keep putting him off to the side. I'm like, this guy, he's telling me, he's asking me questions. It looks like he's never done a deal before. I don't really want to deal with this again. He knows about Canada. He doesn't know about the US, whatever. He keeps asking me questions and questions and questions. So finally, I take the time to actually read what he's sending me. And I go through it and I say, hey, Keith, give me answers to this, and this. How are you funding it? All of these questions. 24 hours goes by. Here's my money partner. Here's this. Here's that. Here's that. I'm ready to do the deal. That's like the epitome of an action taker, man. You got a list. You took it. You internalized it. And you took action on it. And you did exactly what you needed to do. Exactly what you were asked to do to prove to us that you were willing and able to get something like this done. And it really went a long way for me to feel confident enough to assign that contract to you, which you eventually closed on. So, props to you, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
Yeah. Can I say something too that I thought was interesting in what you're talking about too is when you said that you saw the value of Pace's community, that was the reason why you joined. Yeah. I don't think a lot of people actually, I mean, I'm sure there's a good handful of people, but I joined because of little silly things like I don't know how to do the paperwork, but really you can just get a lawyer to do that.
Yeah.
So I think you caught the vision of what Sub 2 is really about, and it's really about community. And when people complain about not feeling like it's worth it, it's because they're totally missing the boat. Like they're totally missing that this is a group of like-minded people, and we're all go-givers. That's something Pace has created. And so, yeah, you just caught the vision and just ran with it. I think that's awesome. So, yeah, I don't know. I just want to say that.
Another thing. It's a little bit. There's a cultural difference. Like, I don't know if it's like this outside the sub community. Maybe it is, but everyone's super nice. Everyone wants to do business. Everyone is extremely like-minded. But it's really not like that here in Canada. How do I explain this? So we have something called connectors. We have avatars. We're dividing up everything into specific categories and showing people how to make money doing this. I didn't expect that, right? So like a lot of people I talk to, they have their connections and they don't want to share it because then that person's going to get overloaded with a bunch of other deals with other people and then they're not going to have time for you. That's kind of like the thinking. With a lot of people that I meet, which kind of sucks, right?
In Canada.
Yeah, exactly, right? And I haven't experienced that once in the sub community, so that's a big deal. And I think maybe it's pace and how he's structured, like the avatars, and he's very all about like the go giver attitude, but also educating people on how to do it. And then people who've done it are also teaching other people how to do it. Maybe it's that, or maybe it's just like in general, like America as a capitalist society is just like that. I don't know which one it is.
Probably both.
It's probably both. Maybe I don't know.
Both.
I think America, the foundation of this country and everything that it stands for is so small business, mom and pop, come up from nothing and get what you can, or just be scrappy, just a scrappy attitude, and and work with others and collaborate and build just great things, because you have limitless opportunity in this country to do basically anything that you put your mind to. And if there's a path out there for you to follow, there's always a path out there for you to follow. So you can emulate people like Pace, and then join communities like Sub 2, where a bunch of other people are trying to emulate that same path. And then you figure out ways to work with those people to emulate it together to get to that desired same outcome. And I feel like that's such like a core value of what America is, that the community kind of embodies it. And I feel like the more that you do business in there, and I don't see this cultural shift because I live here, but you bringing that up just makes me even more grateful to be from where I'm from. So that's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool how you joined that, and that was something that you noticed right away.
Yeah, I gotta come down there.
You should listen.
Yeah.
Anytime, man. But we can go to Niagara Falls. I'm there a lot. But let's go back to when you joined Sub 2.
Okay, yeah.
What did that process look like? So you joined Sub 2, then what happened?
So like you're talking to the MSA, right? And immediately they're telling you, oh yeah, you should do the course and finish it. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I asked her, hey, is it okay if I kind of fast track the course? Because I read the book already. She's like, oh yeah, no problem. You just have to send an email as soon as you finish this section or that section to like the support team. They have an email, right? And then they'll unlock the rest of the course for you. I'm like, great. 2.5 weeks I finished the course. Right, 2.5 weeks I finished the course. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm here for networking, so I just started doing the networking thing. But I did come across, I forget his name, but he started the underwriting course. That was awesome. Like I got a lot of value out of that underwriting course, because I do my own underwriting, and I didn't even know that was the thing that people get paid for, really. So then I started, I took the course, and he incorporated interest rates. He incorporated things that I've never incorporated before. So I'm like, oh man, this guy's so smart. Like, this is an awesome course. So then I did that as well, and I completed the underwriting course. And that also gave me a lot of value, because, I'm underwriting for when I pitch capital partners and so on. But yeah, so that's where I am now. And my main two focuses is kind of just raising money and social media. I decided, instead of just hopping on deals, I'm going to focus on raising money and getting and growing like social media presence, because I was off of social media for a long time, right? I stopped making content. I made content like a while ago when crypto was hype, just for a bit, and then I went from 0 to 500. But now I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to get back on that treadmill and try to like push it, especially with the Paces Project Forward, because I realized, there's a lot of people in this community. It's pretty easy to network. So how hard is it to like record all my conversations?
Yeah.
We don't really know what Project Forward is. We just kind of started doing this, and I guess, I don't know about you, Dom, but a lot of people have been like, oh, you're doing Project Forward. I'm like,
no, honestly, I don't know what it is. I don't know. There's like some other business thing going on in Sub 2 now, which is amazing.
Yeah, no doubt.
But me personally, when I didn't finish the course, like when I joined the community, like I never finished it. I just took action immediately.
Yeah.
And it sucked, and I failed a lot, but it was better than being stuck in analysis paralysis. The only Zoom that I've been in, so there's a lot of Zooms that they do about a lot of different topics, like the social media, all that stuff. The only one that I've really attended over the past, I would say 6 months, is the pad split Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
And then right after the pad split Zoom, I bought a pad split. So I take things and I apply them right away. And I feel like, Keith, you do the same thing, and that's why you've been, successful in your 3-month journey venturing into investing in the United States. But let's talk about the first deal that we did together, specifically that you bought from me. What was it? I explained my perspective, but if you want to take us through, what your thought process was during that, and what made that a deal for you, and just walk us through, a day in the life of Keith during that process.
Sure. So at that time, I was going through Discord, going through Facebook, trying to talk to anyone who posted a deal. I was messaging because I wanted the mortgage statement. Because I looked through the numbers, and if I liked the numbers, what's the mortgage statement? Give me the mortgage statement, because I know there's what's the saying that buyers are liars but sellers are worse. I think that's the saying. Right? So a lot of people lie when it comes to mortgage statements. They say they have no arrears, but they have arrears, right? Or they have more arrears than they actually have told the wholesaler, right? So then I wanted to get over that and get them a copy of the mortgage statement. So I just started getting documents from everyone and then underwriting my own deal.
Right.
And these were my requirements. So I was wrapping first of all, I was wrapping the deal. So essentially, for those who don't know, when you're wrapping a deal, you're getting a sub-2 mortgage. So you're buying a house on subject to, and then that a low interest rate, 3, 4, 5% interest rate, and then you turn around and then you sell that on seller financing, and at like 7, 8, or 9% interest, and then you make a spread between both of the interest rates, and that's your cash flow every single month. That's basically what a wrap is. And what I did is on this deal that Dom had, the mortgage balance was $224,000. Right, and it was a 3.75% interest rate. I'm like, okay, that's good. But sold comparable to ARB, the worst case scenarios that I talked to a real estate agent, a local realtor in San Antonio. I got a CMA report, a comparative market analysis report, and then it said the worst case scenario was 295. Right, one sold for like 287, but yeah, 295. So I'm like, even as a worst case scenario, if I was to like try to get a quick sale, and I didn't care, I just wanted to offload this as soon as possible, and I was to sell it at 285 at the conventional interest rate, with the bank, am I still having a spread between the mortgage balance and what I sell it for? And the answer is yes. Does that spread cover my entry fee? My entry fee to pay like the realtor commission, the wholesale fee, the arrears, the closing costs, all that, the EMD money, all of that was 30 grand roughly. Well, yeah, the spread is bigger than 30 grand. It's almost like 50 or 60 grand. So that checks off. That means if that guy, the end buyer who buys this house, the next month decides to refinance me out, that's okay. If you refinance me out at a bank, if you decide to sell the house to someone who's buying conventionally, that's okay. You know why? Because I'm going to get that 60 grand. So I'm going to get my 30 grand back, which I can give to my investor who gave me the money to buy this in the first place. Right? And I'm still walking out with an extra 20 grand or whatever the difference is between like the entry fee and the sale. So that was really important. Right? And unfortunately, 90% of the deals that I saw, they all had the mortgage balance plus a seller carryback, or they were low equity, meaning there's no spread between what I can actually sell for worst case scenario. Like I know the typical mentality is for a wrap, because of seller financing, you can sell it for higher. But then I'm like, okay, but what's the worst case scenario, right? Where am I risking it? Like, I need to assess my risk. So that's basically, to sum it up very quickly, those are my requirements. Is there a spread between the notes? Am I getting my entry fee back? And is the cash flow? Oh, the last thing is the cash flow more than 15% return. So if I'm borrowing money to invest in this, why would somebody give me the money when they can go and private lend the money themselves? Because not only will they get a 15% interest in this market, right, for a second mortgage to someone, just interest-only payments, but they'll also get a lender's fee, but they can charge you 1% lender's fee. So they're going to make more money. So then in order for me to make this deal enticing, because remember, not only that, but let's say that's a short-term loan, that's 6 months or 1 year. After that, 1 year after that, 6 months, they get their whole money back. But in a wrap, they're not getting their whole money back. So then how am I going to set it up and structure it in a way where they're still going to be happy? Well, it has to be more than a 15% return, right? So obviously, when the end buyer puts their down payment, and I'm going to give some of that money back to the capital partner. But so let's say instead of 30 grand, it ends up being like 23 grand. Out of that 23 grand, am I able to cough up more than a 15% return? Yes? Okay, great. That checks that off, right? And then what I do is, the way I split it up is like 90-10 until you get all your money back for the capital partner. And once they get all their money back, then it's a 50-50 split. Because now you're just making free money, right? That's the benefit of a wrap versus private lending. Because on private lending, sure, you're invested for 6 months, and then you get all your money back, but you stop making recurring income on a monthly basis. But with wraps, you get all your money back, and now you're continuing to make recurring income because you invested in me and you trusted me. So now then there's like a relationship building tactic there, and then they recycle their money again, right?
Right.
So that's kind of the structure and the plan and how I set it up. But I know a lot of people do it differently where, once they get their money back, they're out of the deal, or it's 50-50 from the beginning, or they just drop the money, they don't get anything, and it's just like cash flow. They split it like that too. But I feel like with my capital partners, I have to give them a lot of value so then I can get that kind of value in return down the road. So because of that, I structured it this way, if that makes sense.
It does.
And these are the same people that have helped me before when I needed to do like my trifecta deal. Like, and I paid them back even though I was down 95K, right? So because of that, I want to continue to build that relationship with them. So that's how I structured that deal.
How did you pay them back when you were down 95K?
Well, so here's the thing. So we have a certain amount of money that we spent on renovation, a certain amount of money of our own that we use for down payment, right? Our own money comes from our personal line of credit or so on. And this deal was between me and my buddy, and we did it together. So that he coughed up half the down payment, I coughed up half the down payment, and when we went to refinance the property, we got money back, right? That money we gave to, and we made sure we paid back the capital partner, but we never got our personal money back for like the down payment cost. So that's what we ended up doing. Any money that we came back, the priority ended up being the capital partners. They all get paid first, we get paid last, right? Because eventually, it's a buy and hold. I'm gonna get the money back 3 years from now when the rates go down. So what does it matter to me? Right? That's how I saw it. Yeah. That
makes sense. That's awesome, man. That's really cool. And
yeah, I know it's a lot. I just threw on. I talk fast.
No, I'm glad Dom understood that because I'm still wrapping.
What did you understand?
I haven't like done the wrap zooms, and so wraps are still kind of a black box.
You don't need to do the wrap zooms. This is a wrap in a nutshell. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keith took over a mortgage at 3.75%, right?
Okay.
Keith, that was 3.75. Okay,
That's
so
right.
he took over a loan at 3.75. I'm gonna make up my own numbers because I don't remember the numbers of the deal, except for one. I'll mention that number. So let's say he had 3.75 mortgage subject to that he took over, 224 mortgage balance, I think he said, and let's say the house is worth $300,000 on market. He's in it. His entry fee is $40,000, let's say, between cash to the seller, between my assignment fee, between, let's say, closing costs, all that, he's in 40 grand. Okay. So now he's all in the deal, the mortgage plus the entry fee. He's in it for 262 or 264, right?
64. Okay.
So now he sells it to a wrap buyer at 300,000. So there's already a spread there. He gets a down payment, let's say of 10%. So he gets that 10%, the 30 grand down. He pays himself back 30 of his $40,000. And now he has 10 grand left in the deal. He has equity there to cover his 10 grand that's left in the deal and then some. And he's cash flowing the difference between the mortgage that he just created at 8-9%. That's 270,000. And the mortgage that's at 3.75%, that's 224. So there's a big spread there. There's the cash flow, the difference between the 3.75 and let's say 8% that he takes home every month. There's the principal. There's the principal. There's the pay down. So the pay down component. So that 3.75% loan is getting paid down way quicker than the 8% loan. So you're creating a bigger spread every single month because your principal pay down, let's say in that case, is $300, $400 more than that 8% is. So let's say the average time where someone takes to refinance these loans is like 7 to 10 years. So 7 to 10 years, Keith might be looking at $100,000 spread. And one day he's going to get a call from a servicing company, and the servicing company that's doing his loan is going to say, "Hey, Keith, the seller just refinanced the house. The buyer just refinanced your house. Here's $100,000." And that's how wraps work. So you cash flow X amount of time. The servicing company takes care of the payments. And then when it comes time for the buyer that just bought the house, that the seller refi, there's the remaining balance, whatever the spread is between the new mortgage and then the existing mortgage that we had sub to, comes to the buyer, being Keith in this example. So he's only going to make more and more money as the deal goes on longer.
And you just don't know when that's going to happen.
It doesn't matter when it happens. That's why
you're going to make money either way.
You're going to make money in cash flow until then.
Yeah, typically when the rates go down, you can expect it's going to happen, right? Like the way I see it is like, why would somebody keep an 8% mortgage if the rates drop to like 4%? Why would somebody do that? They're gonna figure out some way, get their uncle, get their aunt, someone to co-sign to get that mortgage, because their payments will go down by a significant portion. So why wouldn't they? And the appreciation of the property is going to be more, so they can probably pull out some equity too, right? Because when rates go down, property values go up.
So it's a win for everybody. The reason why wraps are so hot right now for us is because there's these mortgages that are in the 2s, 3s, and 4s that are everywhere, and mortgage rates are getting higher and higher and higher. And the Fed already said 2024 is a wash. You don't expect mortgage rates to go down for some time. So we're going to keep seeing these sub-2 loans that are huge assets on the market right now for us, for people who know how to get these deals. They're going to buy them, create a spread, and then wrap these deals. The only thing about wraps is that you no longer own the property, which is a good and bad thing. The good thing is that you don't have to deal with any overhead. You don't have to deal with any tenants. You don't have to deal with any of that. It's not your house anymore because you now deeded the property over to somebody else in Texas, which is what you have to do, which Keith knows.
And my favorite part is that no property tax.
No property taxes.
Wow.
Because the new owner pays the new taxes and insurance, which is why I wrap in Florida, because I don't want to pay insurance. But that's digress from that for a second.
Wow. So you're just earning basically the difference between the 3.75% and the 8%.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
No overhead, really.
There's no overhead at all. The only thing that can happen is, in Florida, I can't do this in Texas, but in Florida, I do something called contract for deed. So basically, what that means, man, this is a good podcast, guys. We're really getting into the weeds of this stuff. But podcast, a contract for deed is essentially, it's the same thing as a wrap, but you're not transferring the deed until the note that you create is paid in full. So I have the deed, the wraps that I'm doing in Florida, and this is why I like doing them in Florida, is I have the deed to the property until the note that I create for that buyer is paid in full, which means that there's percentages on how that works, but they have full control of the house. They own, for all intents and purposes, they own the house. But let's say they stop paying. I don't have to go through that foreclosure process. It would be more similar to an eviction process, which takes significantly less time, especially in Florida. So in Texas, you can't do that. You have to transfer the deed because that's how the laws work there.
Yeah, I know there's certain things that are illegal in Texas, right? What was
so Texas has a couple of weird, quirky laws in regards to real estate, like lease options and contract for deed, whatever it is. Lease options, you can't go more than 6 months.
Yeah.
Perhaps you have to transfer the deed. It's just they have a couple of weird rules. But as a landlord in Texas, like as of long-term rental properties, I'll tell you firsthand that if I have a non-paying tenant in the state of Texas, they don't really take kindly to that. It's a 2-week eviction process, and they're pretty firm on that. So it's definitely got its perks for sure.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to invest in Texas, because it's landlord friendly, and technically I experienced my first non-paying tenant in Ontario. Because that house in Sault Ste. Marie, they just stopped paying the rent. I'm like, damn. And it takes like 6 months ish to evict a tenant here, and it could take up to 12 months if you screwed up the paperwork or something happened along the way. And so you're pretty much screwed. And a lot of people that I've talked to here, like they would have a tenant that didn't pay for a year, and then they finally got evicted, but the landlord tenant board said that they are not going to recuperate the money. So
imagine being in Canada, where in Toronto specifically, where your mortgage payment is double your rent, And then on top of that, it takes you 12 months to evict a non-paying tenant from one of your properties. Why would any real estate person that wants to build wealth for themselves and their family invest in a place like that? That's why you see the Keiths of the world investing in places like Texas, because it doesn't make sense to invest in the Torontos of the world, the Vancouvers of the world, the New York Cities of the world anymore. It just doesn't. And
Man, you'd be surprised. Like it's funny because when I talk to people here, the same argument you give is the same argument they give for investing here, if that makes sense. Because
really, what's their argument?
So the prices are high. That's awesome. They're only gonna go high. You get it? Like the rent is expensive. It's only gonna go up. Like the mortgage is high. It's only gonna go up faster. So you better get it now. Like you get it? It's the same argument, but instead of saying that's why it's bad, they say that's why it's good. They just flip the script.
But that's everywhere, though. You buy anywhere, and it's going to get more expensive. Theoretically, it's going to get more expensive, and the rent's going to go up. You know,
and even rent, because I rent where I live right currently. So I live downtown. In 2016, the rent was what $1,650 for one bedroom. Currently, it's $2,700.
Wow.
So from that was in 2020. Sorry, from 2020 to now 2023, it went from $1,650 to $2,700.
Yeah, but you probably didn't have to pay rent in 2020.
No, I did.
I'm sure you did, but I'm sure a lot of people didn't, and nothing happened to them.
Yeah. So another thing, we have some weird laws in Ontario too, because in Ontario where I live, if you live in an older building, then the rent is capped and it only goes up 2.4% per year. So you can't increase the rent more than that, right? But buildings built after 2018 are newer buildings, and there's no rent control for these buildings. So like last year, my rent not last year, like the beginning of this year, my rent went up $600, and that's okay. They're allowed to do that, 100% legal.
What?
Yeah. If I want to combat that, then pretty much I would just have to not pay rent and try to, wait 12 months. But I'm not going to
$600. Wow.
Yeah.
There's rent control because buildings are older.
Yeah.
Is there Section 8 in Canada?
No. No, we have different rules here, but there's no Section 8. Interesting, right? Yeah. Different country, different world, different everything.
We could talk about this. I mean, we went through like your arc as a real estate investor to this point. I think people will probably get a lot of value of us just having a conversation about this type of stuff.
Perhaps, yeah, maybe. There are a few people that I've met. Like the one thing that I do know that works in Ontario is like a larger multifamily building, or like even mid-sized multifamily buildings, because if you know how to buy deep, like if you can talk to the landlord and negotiate an actual good price, then the benefit is that you're gonna buy that building, right? It's a business now, right? Because when it comes to like larger multifamilies, it's not based on social comparables. It's based on how much rent you're bringing into the building. So now it's based on your NOI. So if you want to increase the value of the building, well, maybe charge a pet fee or something to increase the total revenue. And then your property is going to be just worth more, so you can go to the bank and pull out more money, right? So that does work here, and it's just competitive, and it's very tough because you have to really try hard. Like the amount of effort and energy you put to talk to landlords, it'll take you like maybe 6 months or a year after talking to like 100 people or more until you can lock down like 1 or 2 deals. That's kind of the norm. But I from the people that I've talked to in the subject community, man, they'll talk to like 10 people and get one multifamily deal in a month, and then get another one the next month, and they're syndicating that. I'm like,
we're getting like 1 or 2. We're getting like 1 to 3 a week.
Yeah. So like for the time and effort that you put here, the same time and effort, you'll probably get a 10 to 100x return in the States. So that's another reason why I wanted.
That's because can you do sub 2 in Canada? Is that even
no? No, there's no such thing as a sub 2 here. So it's a little bit different. The deed and mortgage are a little bit intertwined. So when you go to the lawyer, because we don't have escrow here, it's the lawyers to do everything, right? So when you go to the lawyer to buy the house, the lawyers will have to remove the previous mortgage, or you have to assume it has to be in your name, and they'll check that on the deed. If it's not, then you can't purchase the house.
Wow.
So like, because I asked a bunch of lawyers and I paid for a lawyer for some advice. I'm like, they're like, no, you can't do that here. I'm like, okay. Well,
Wow.
That is so good to know, because I actually have a Canadian social media influencer that's a wholesaler that I'm hooking up with.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to explain to him sub 2, and we went round and round and round, and he just was not getting it.
Yeah,
like
he
all.
probably
So.
Was talking to you about like assumable mortgages, because like here's the thing. So why sub 2 doesn't exist? Like there's a reason for it. So in America you have 30-year term mortgages. So okay,
Right.
you can take over the payments for that, and the bank is never gonna know. Right?
Right.
You can just go to your mom and pay her mortgage every month, and the bank's not gonna know. Like they don't care as long as it's getting paid because it's locked in for 30 years. We don't have that in Canada. Like, I think I made a reel about that too.
Dude, it got like 15,000 views. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was awesome.
Yeah. So like, yeah, we have 3-5-year mortgages.
What?
That's normal. Yeah, 3-year terms, 5-year terms.
Mortgages?
Yeah, so then after the 3-year term, you're renewing the mortgage to whatever the current interest rate is.
Oh, so it's just variable.
Well, it's fixed though. Like, so variable means like you got a mortgage for the 3 years, and it, like your payment is locked. For example, if you're paying $2,000 a month, that's it. You're paying $2,000, but more of it is now going to interest because the rates went up. You're paying less principal, and it keeps going up. And it just stays like that. And then when your 3 years finishes, now you got to get another variable. Well, now you're paying a higher amount, and a portion of that principal, portion of that interest. And then if the rates go up, then you're paying less towards principal and more towards interest. So that's how your payments are fixed, right? But the rates are still going up, right? And then there's 3 years where it's fixed. So that is the fixed rate interest, and that's fixed rate principal, and that's what you're paying for the 3 years to the 5 years. And then after that, you have to go and get whatever the current rate is. But
dude, I'm gonna make a reel now, and you're gonna explain it just like you did in your other reel. And you know how you did the sound effect with that guest you had, and he was like, "What?" I'm gonna do the same thing with Dom, and hopefully, when he's like, "What?"
Yeah.
Hopefully, I get it as many views.
I mean, I try to,
because it shocks us over here.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like reels and stuff like that, I try to story, call to action. I try to follow that format. I know like I promote the something a little bit different. I think it's like hook, retain, engage, or something a little bit. It's a little bit different. So I'm gonna try to switch over to that. But typically, I just try to catch people's attention for like 2 seconds.
We need to have like you and I would love to just sit down and just go over your social media stuff. I feel like that's a whole nother podcast. Yeah. But
I'm not even that big on social media yet, so I don't know. Baby steps. But I'll get there. I'm shooting a bunch of content now this week, especially. So I think in about like 2-3 weeks, I'm gonna start pumping out 3 videos a day. Once I like finish shooting everything and getting all of them edited, and I have some help too. Like one of my family friends is helping me out. Then we'll start pumping that out probably the end of the month. I'm hoping, probably end of September. Start from there, and then I got a couple more people lined up for podcasts too. So get on with them, and then I'll do that. Yeah.
So we got to wrap it up a little bit. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
But what's like some last pieces of advice you'd give to like a new real estate investor? Do you think?
New real estate investor in Canada wanting to invest in the States. It's not that hard. It's easy. Reach out to me if you want. I can help you out. But sometimes it's just a Google search away or a one phone call away. And then once you get a hold of the right person, they can tell you how easy it is to invest in the States without a credit score, without the bank. It's that easy. A lot of people are in disbelief just because of how difficult it is here in Canada. But when you're used to struggling in a certain aspect, you're in a massive disbelief that there's an easier way because you struggle doing something a certain way, and you're gonna think that everyone who says it's easier is just a scam artist, but that's not true. So sometimes it's just one phone call away. You just gotta try, look over, and the grass is definitely greener on the other side. That's what I would say.
Love that, dude. You're the man. This was awesome.
You guys are the guy. You guys are the man. Are you kidding me?
That was fun.
I love what you guys do. I gotta talk to you guys more about your systems, how you guys all paired up, all 3 of you guys. Like, man, that I look up to that a lot. The fact that you guys individually, like, Dom just focuses on this for one guy for numbers, one guy for like closing. Like, that's a beautiful system, and I haven't been able to do that yet. I'm trying to figure out how to do that in the future.
Well, it starts with the right people, because I have qualities that work for me. Nick has qualities that work for him. Mike has qualities that work for him, right? And we would not be able to do, all of us collectively would not be able to do what we are able to accomplish without the other pieces of the puzzle. So I guess that's the beautiful thing about it, right? It's that thing that we could circle back to earlier that you were talking about, and how the culture in America is like go giving, in a sense that everybody wants to, seeing other people rise to the top with them and being able to complement each other's skill sets with their strengths fitting other people's weaknesses, and taking that and just running with it is such a beautiful thing. And we're I feel blessed to be, what I'm doing now and know people like you guys, and I'm sure you guys feel the same way, and it's just awesome. So yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, man. I feel blessed just to be part of what you guys are doing, because you guys have made mistakes doing other things. So when I come to you with a deal, you can be like, "Oh, I've already made that mistake. You shouldn't do that." So.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about me is you might not be able to tell this by talking to me like initially, but but Nick, you might be able to, but me specifically, you wouldn't. I don't know. You guys can let me know if I come off this way, but I tend to be super optimistic about things, even when I shouldn't be, and that's burnt me in the past. So Mike is and I'll get Mike on here one of these days. Mike is our dream crusher, and he basically tells us why some of our ideas are stupid and we shouldn't do them. So everybody needs a mic, because we're going to have a lot of bad ideas. And without a mic, you're probably going to make a lot more mistakes than you need to. So moral of the story is find a mic.
Start now. Find a mic. And then
find someone to tell you that your ideas suck.
Basically.
Yeah. I'm not even sure. It's funny, but I'm not kidding. Find somebody that will, you're a visionary, obviously, Keith. You're a visionary. Obviously, Landon. You guys are visionaries.
I'm a visionary?
I think so.
Okay.
I think let's say for the sake of argument that we're all visionaries here.
I think we are. I think we all are.
Yeah.
We're all like, yes.
Let's say that we're visionaries. We need integrators to put us in our place, because we have a vision that doesn't fit with reality exactly, but we have a clear path of where we want to go, but we don't really know exactly how to get there. And with an integrator to put your vision into reality, you're going to have a much easier time, make a lot less mistakes. So
that's really good advice.
read Rocket Fuel. I don't know if you guys have read that one before, but it talks about the visionary integrator dynamic, and it gives you like a personality test to figure out like which one you are. I read that book. I was like, damn, I am a visionary. I need some integrators around me, man. I'm making so many mistakes, and as soon as I did that, I was like, man, I've made half the mistakes that I made a year and a half ago. So, but that I guess, if you guys have anything to add to that, you feel free, but I think that's a cool way to end the podcast, sum it all up.
Awesome. I wanted to say thank you guys for letting me come on. Really appreciate it. I look up to get you guys, so that's a big deal for me. So thank you so much.
Dude, yeah, of course. Well, let's stay connected for sure. So next week, Tuesday at 8 p.m., I have a guest lined up. I don't want to say his name yet, but we'll be here next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard.
And we're thinking about, I think we talked about it, Landon, but moving the format to pre-recorded in the future and then putting it out at 8 to fit more of a schedule and edit timeline. So we might experiment with that in the near future.
Okay.
All right.
Yep. All right. See you guys later. Have a good night.
Thanks for tuning in.
Here, guys. Bye.